You said CrossFit, you believe, is the most optimal way to train for longevity if you're doing it right. And that was where I was like, okay, there it is. Because my mom is a physical therapist and she would have CrossFitters coming into her office just absolutely wrecked from probably overtraining, under recovering, not having the proper mobility and movement quality of things. So when you say doing it the right way, like what are the principles or the core pillars to doing CrossFit in the right way?
Well, I'm not gonna speak for CrossFit specifically, but I'll say from my experience, and I think PTs get a interesting perspective on CrossFit because they see the people that are doing CrossFit that are overusing muscles and probably training incorrectly, and therefore they need to go to PT. Um, I see CrossFit as PT. So if I injure my arm, if I pull a muscle in my lat doing something, I'm going to be doing CrossFit to rehab it. But my needs have changed. I'm no longer needing to try and pull 100 pounds more than my body weight up on a pull-up bar. My needs are now to rehab my arm, and my degree has changed, but the movement is still the same. Meaning that I'm not going to add weight to my pull, but I'm going to pull and I'm going to lighten the load. But the way to get mobility back is to continue to use that range of motion, but maybe you use a band so that it's lighter as opposed to adding weight. Um, and so one of the biggest things you'll hear on our channel specifically is scaling for life, because I want to be able to have functional as much functionality as possible for as long as possible. And at its core, that's what CrossFit's ethos and message is. And that kind of gets lost when people are excited. And it's very easy to do this. And there's no blame for anyone for doing this because I've done it for years, which is you go into the gym, you see what's on the whiteboard, you see your buddy and you're competitive with him. And you're like, well, I need to beat him doing the same workout. And so I'm going to do something I probably shouldn't do, because then on paper on the whiteboard at the end of today, I've beaten John at X, Y, and Z. But I've been able to shift that goal of like, I don't care what's on the whiteboard today. I care what I'm able to do when I'm 80. I care what I'm able to do when I have my great grandkids running around me, and can I lift them up, and can I still go ski with them? And so that sometimes means I have to pull back and do things that are more appropriate for where I'm at on today's level. But looking at it as a very 1,000-foot view or 10,000-foot view of a life, because if you're caught up in what my max, and this is interesting because you were talking about my PR deadlifts earlier, and there's a whole story behind that. But the um, trying to do things at a maximal and high intensity all the time can be detrimental to a longer term life of health. And so um, CrossFit's goal and their definition of fitness is work capacity across broad time and modal domains, which means you're functional at many things for as long as possible. And so you want to train everything, but that doesn't mean you need to be fully functional and as best as possible at everything right now. It just means to be training those things so that you can do them when they're necessary.
Got it.
And
Okay.
so I think someone like a PT that's seen people coming injured, you're dealing with people that are ego lifting one other note on that is, and I just saw this the other day, which is they talk about how you need to be, CrossFit has, I forget their phrase, but something about intensity. And the intensity, I think, for people can be relative, where my intensity today might not be what it is tomorrow. And I need to be to scale that appropriately for what the task is at hand.